Today I would like to demonstrate my new 8-string octophonic guitar. Now to start with, I purchased an Agile 8-string. I'll post the exact model number. I think it's like an Interceptor Pro or something. But this one has a fixed bridge. I didn't really want to mess with the tremolo. It would have been kind of cool, but I just, you know, it's a lot easier to change tunings and string tension and stuff without a tremolo system. And of course tuning is a lot faster. And one slight modification I had to make here is my cotton swabs I've got stuffed under the strings. And I've seen at least one other video online with an Agile guitar where a guy had like some felt stuck behind the strings, and I was like, what was that for? Well, I soon found out you get this thing, and I think part of it is the really tight construction. The thing is so solid, it resonates completely through, and you know, the instrument itself, and then you've got higher string tension, and what happens is the resonance, you know, when you like play these strings, they'll like ring out. It's kind of a miniature harp kind of sound. That sound bleeds through your normal playing and is picked up by the pickups constantly if you don't do something about it. So I had to, like, you know, just stuck a couple of cotton swabs in there and mute all the lower strings that resonate, and that works great. So that's what I started with, is this Agile guitar. It has Seymour Duncan blackouts, and I got a custom pickup from Paul Rubenstein in New York. And I'll link to his page and everything. And I'm really impressed with it. For a very reasonable price, you know, the whole package was only like $360 something for the breakout box and the pickup. And this is a humbucker, octophonic humbucker, so basically a separate pickup inside here for each string. And I measured my string spacing and sent those measurements to him, and it is basically custom fit, so you get the best signal and string separation and stuff. So I've installed that guitar and run it straight to the output jack. This is an 8-pin DIN jack. Had to route through my hole or ream or whatever you call it, this hole a little bit wider. It was a 1/4-inch jack plug that was in here. And then it fits great. I didn't even have to put the mounting screws on because it's got so much, you know, it just squeezes in there. I just tapped it in the last couple of millimeters with a little hammer, and that goes to an 8-pin DIN cable. So this is basically the same overall size as a MIDI cable, but instead of 5 pins inside, it's got 8. And I just ordered these on the internet. I just searched eBay for like 8-pin DIN cable, and these are made for something. I don't know what really uses these, but I got 4 of them for, I don't know, they ended up being like something like $12 each or something. A little bit pricey, but these are decent cables, and I kind of like them. And I like the larger 8-pin DIN jack because it's, the pins are a lot sturdier, and it seems to hold up to plugging and unplugging a lot more, and you don't bend the pins and stuff. And that goes to this breakout box. Let's see if I can free it from its bonds here. This is the breakout box that I got from Paul Rubenstein. It's got 8 1/4-inch jacks and the DIN jack. It's just a standard one. He does make boxes with switches where you can assign the outputs to one of 2 separate jacks, and that's really handy for running through 2 amps and stuff, and I may order one of those later or modify this one or something. But it's constructed really well. I'm really impressed with it. Everything works great, and I'm running this 8-channel snake that just has 1/4-inch TS inputs here, jacks on this end, and on the other end is XLR going into my audio interface. So I'm using 8 of the inputs on my audio interface, which happen to be XLR. So I'm going this route, and the signal, I kind of like the way it sounds. It's kind of a different signal than you get if you're running through a DI box or using a correct guitar input on. And my audio interface has a couple. And between that and the DI boxes I've had, I've kludged together a setup where I have each string separately going in through a DI like it's supposed to. And that has more of a typical guitar sound like you'd expect with less noise. But this is functional for now. You know, I think down the road I might purchase like a Behringer 8 DI. They make a rack mount unit that's got 8 inputs. It's a DI, and that would be really handy for this. So, yeah, without further ado, let's try to demonstrate it a little bit. So you just find the correct orientation, plug in your jack, and plug in, here we go. So, what I'm running this through is Mainstage. I use Logic Pro and Mainstage primarily for this. I've done Digital Performer for a couple things so far, but I really like Logic Pro and just switched to it because it's so cheap and has guitar amp models that come with it, and they seem to require a little less processing power than Amplitude, which is nice. On this machine I'm basically almost maxing out the CPU meter, because what I'm doing is running each string through its own separate amp model. I'm using the Guitar Amp Pro models, which are kind of the older generation amp models for Logic and Mainstage, and they require a lot less CPU power. So by using those, I'm able to run 8 of them separately, and I'm going for the whole reason basically I got this Octophonic pickup is I wanted to do lead guitar harmony type sounds and play them, you know, be able to play full chords through and have a nice lead guitar duet kind of sound, where, you know, typically you have like 2 guitars playing live, each through their separate amp, and if you're recording you can just have one guitar player repeatedly lay down separate tracks just playing single note melodies and run those together, and you get these nice lush sustaining harmony sounds that have a lot more clarity than running it all through distortion, which of course I love that sound where you have a normal pickup and all the strings are mixed together and run through distortion, and that's a staple of my music, of course, but I also like to have the option of doing both, of doing lead harmonies and stuff playing live. So I don't quite have everything set up with a foot switch and everything. What I'd like to do is just have it rigged up with a foot switch where I can with one setting have all 8 strings separate through their own amp, hit the switch, and then they all mix together through an amp. And then I've even toyed around with this where you have like bottom 4 strings go to one amp, top 4 to separate amps, so you can kind of do harmonies and stuff up here, and then regular guitar chords down here. And then I've also had set up where I have like the bottom string or 2 going to a bass amp model, and then you know, guitar amps and things up here. It's really nice with the A string. You have lots of options and lots of things you can do with it. But what I'd like to demonstrate today is simply the separate guitar amps for each string kind of sound doing harmonies. And we'll have to get this all set up right and everything. About the right volume level. So there you go, as you can hear, we get here I kind of have some bleed through of the different strings, so I'm getting some crunchy kind of distortion, especially on the lower strings. But you know, it's kind of a compromise. What I found is I'd really like to have some, because with lead tone you really want lots of gain. You know, you have lots of clipping. And what I found though is you run into this situation where let's say this is your signal, kind of your amplitude for your main string, like for instance a high E string, and then you'll have your B string, the one right next to it, the high B string bleeding into it maybe this much. And when you're playing clean, that's a great separation. You know, you can do some really distinctive separation between the two, but then when you run those, basically when you start clipping, you still have this difference in dynamic range that, this amplitude, you're not really reducing the amplitude of your bleed from your other strings, the crosstalk, so you can just keep clipping and clipping until you get to the point where your high E string and then the sound of the B string bleeding through are the same, and then you might as well be just having all the strings running through your same amp or amp model, because it sounds the same, with lots of gain. So I've had to, the solution is I have to reduce the gain and not have that much distortion in the amp models, and then I get quite a bit of separation. And I've done some other things too to help reduce noise and eliminate crosstalk, or at least eliminate bleeding from strings I'm not playing. I've got a separate noise gate on each string with the sidechain input coming from the actual input signal, and then the noise gate is at the end of the amp model. Basically your best case scenario noise gate setup, and that's nice because it really helps clean things up. Even if you're running them all through one amp, if you do this first, separate noise gates on each string first, it really helps to clean things up, and that was kind of a nice benefit I hadn't foreseen. Another thing I'm doing is I'm running every other string. Basically every other string I reversed the polarity, I reversed the phase, or inverted phase, whatever you call it, and that way, I was doing that to try to eliminate crosstalk, which it doesn't help very much or at all. But what it does do is the 60 cycle hum or line noise that's coming through is just completely eliminated once you do that, which is nice, because then all you have is some hiss bleeding through. But now you can't really even hear that, because with the noise gates and everything, I've done quite a bit of work to clean up the signal and everything, because it was kind of a problem. I found that when I run the strings through a DI on the interface and get the correct impedance matching, I have a lot less noise. So a lot of that noise is just basically because of the setup I'm using. I'm not using a DI and just running straight into the XLR inputs. But it's good enough for now, and with the software I'm able to help clean it up. So, and I'll play some more chords up here. The chords are I'm still mastering all the different chords on the 8th string. So you kind of get the idea. And one other kind of plus, which is kind of cool, is with down-tuned guitar and baritones and whatever, you get to the low end, and a lot of times things get muddy, so your power chords don't sound as good. And I know a lot of that has to do with harmonics with the strings and whatnot. And this guitar does have a 30-inch scale and fairly light strings. So the inharmonicity is fairly good, I think. The overtones are fairly in tune, but still, playing those lower power chords. And you can help that by using different amp models for the lower strings that have less high end and stuff, and I've done that. Right now I'm just using the same one for all of them, so these are kind of... But it helps to separate them out so I've got some bleed over. Basically with the amount of gain I've got on these lower strings, I've got about half signal bleeding over, half of it coming through clean. But that does help to clean up these power chords. okay, I've just got to tune this low F sharp down to E because I'm playing. Yeah, drop tuning chords now. One finger. Yeah, you can have all kinds of fun with the 8-string, but so yeah, that's basically what I wanted to demonstrate today. I guess I'll save some other things for future videos when I have it set up, where I'm using kind of different types of amps for different strings and whatnot. But overall, I'm very impressed with Octophonic pickup, and it's basically done exactly what I wanted. It would be nice to have a little bit better string separation, and I think I can do better. I've even toyed around with like basically taking the signal from the B string pickup and using that. Basically, I've compared it to the bleed over that's bleeding into the high E string pickup, and tried to see what I had to do to cancel it out. You know, use the signal from the B string pickup to cancel out the high E string, and I've had some success. You basically have to reduce the amplitude quite a bit, and of course invert the phase, and then do some EQ. Basically, you roll off some of the high end because there's less high end coming in the other pickup, and you do all those things. And I've basically reduced the crosstalk to about a third of what it was previously, and so I can get better. And I think if you really knew what you were doing, you could write software that would analyze the strings and analyze the bleed through and do basically an optimal cancellation, noise cancellation between strings, and you could probably virtually eliminate crosstalk just by doing that, just with DSP. Since you have the advantage of having separate signals coming through, and there's definitely enough of a difference between them that you can do some tricks like that and get really good separation. Even better. I mean, it's already pretty darn good, but you can get even better than that, I'm sure. So this is just basically my first introductory stab at it. I've only had this set up for a couple weeks, and I've been playing with it off and on. I'm trying to give my hands a rest because I end up playing so much. I'm not used to playing for hours and hours, and I don't want to like destroy my hands because I get all gung-ho about it, and I'm trying to kind of work up to it, get into playing some more again, and kind of adapt to the 8-string. You know, but as just kind of an aside, this Agile 8-string is far and away the best multi-string guitar I've ever played. I haven't played that many. I've played some, but I remember before I had an ESP 7-string, and I ended up playing a lot of power chords and stuff on the bottom strings, and I ended up feeling like I was doing this kind of maneuver a lot, where I'm kind of extending my fingers and trying to squeeze really hard, and I ended up getting some really weird pains shooting up my arm, and that was just kind of bad, and I thought, oh no, I'm never going to be able to play a 7-string, let alone an 8-string, because I just can't do that. But I'll tell you, with this Agile, you know, I guess it could be part of the action. It's got a nice low action, the strings all ring clear, the frets are all, you know, ring cleanly. It's really nice, and part of it is I guess just the combination of scale length, the width they chose for the neck. I think the strings are a little bit closer together. The profile of the neck, it all seems just about perfect. The neck, it reminds me, the way it feels, it reminds me of my dad's like nylon string classical guitar I used to play when I was a kid, because it had a lot wider of a neck like this, and it just feels nice. It's got a great feel to it. I've never had any problems with feeling extra pain or tension in my fingers or anything. So I just highly recommend these Agile guitars, even though they got like some issues with like sounds bleeding through and stuff. I'm sure that could be alleviated somehow. I'd put in maybe at least some more professional looking damper behind the strings, and maybe someday I'll get something that looks a little bit better. But this works for now, and it's a great instrument. And the Octophonic pickup, the fact that Paul Rubenstein just makes those for a very reasonable price. You're basically getting a handmade pickup, custom made for price that's very comparable to buying custom or specialized pickups through Musician's Friend or something. So I think it's a great deal, and I'm really pleased with the setup, and I'm sure other people could be inspired with lots of other new and creative things you could do with having an octophonic output, or hexaphonic, or heptaphonic, whatever your setup may be. So thanks for watching, and have a nice day.